DreAllDay.com.
Before you scale your business, there's some things to be fixed and addressed. Now, this episode is specifically made for the entrepreneurs and people running businesses who want to take their businesses beyond the level of, let's say, sustaining, and you wanted to actually become an enterprise and an entity all unto itself, to where the business is the entity rather than just you doing the stuff. I talked about scaling up your life in episode 2995 and also doing things that don't scale in episode 2088. Today, I want to talk about things you want to make sure you get in place at the foundational level of your business before you first of all try to or even think about scaling up your business. In other words, making it into, again, an entity unto itself, to where it doesn't require you. And even if you completely stepped away, the business still keeps doing what it's doing. You want an example of this on a super high level. You think of something like Walmart, who Walmart still runs these days. The guy who started Walmart, Sam Walton, is not even alive anymore. A company like Apple, Steve Jobs he was one of the starters of the company. Then he left the company, came back, and he passed away about 15 years ago. Apple is still Apple. A company like Amazon, Jeff Bezos walked away from the CEO operations some time ago. And Amazon is still Amazon. Amazon is still doing its thing because it had the things that I'm going to discuss here today already in place. So this episode is specifically for the entrepreneurs and people running businesses who want to take their businesses beyond the level of simply sustaining, and you want to make it into an enterprise and entity all unto itself. And I'm going to tell you the three key things that must be taken care of and running smoothly, regardless of the business, regardless of the industry, if you're going to make this happen with what you do. And again, it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing or the level that you're at right now. All these things need to be in place. Any business that wants to be consistently successful wants to have these three things set properly, and everyone in the business needs to be on the same page with regards to these elements. So let's get into it without any further suspense. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is before you scale, fix these three things. Number one, communication. What do I mean by communication? This is the way that you get your message out. It is also how you receive the messages coming to you, and making sure this is done consistently and done in such a way that people on the outside understand who you are, what you're about, why and how you do what you do, and that your message is coming from you anytime they come across your message. That last part, what I mean by that is, even if your name wasn't on the message, people should look at it and know that it came from you. Know that it's you talking, because they can read your style and your tone even if they don't see your name. If you read an article written by me and my name wasn't on it, you would know that it's my style and you know it's my article, even if I didn't sign my name to it or it didn't come from my email address. That's communication. That communication needs to be dialed in and clear. What is your style? What is your tone? What is your approach? What's the energy behind your message? People need to know what that is. When you're an individual building a brand, you have to master what we call your voice. What is your voice? What is your approach? What's your style? I have a certain style. I have a certain approach. I have a certain way of getting my point across, a certain way of building my case and making my argument. I have a certain way that I get it across in the written form, a certain way I get it across in the spoken form. And when you're reading my written word, you can almost hear me saying it in the spoken word. If you heard me talk and you read my writing, then you notice the similarities between the two. Why? Because I master my voice. I know exactly what my approach is and exactly what my style is. And it works perfectly for some. It doesn't work for others. That's the exact point. Your voice is not going to be perfect for everybody. And when you're an individual building your brand, you need to get clear on what your voice is so that you can occupy a space in the marketplace and people start to understand and even anticipate your tone, your energy, and your approach, which are all more important than the actual thing that you're doing. Let me reemphasize that point. You need to master your voice so that you occupy space and people start to understand and appreciate and identify with your tone, your energy, and your approach. These are all more important than the actual thing that you do, because your tone, energy, and approach cannot be replicated. The thing you do can be replicated. Somebody can copy what you're doing. And if you don't believe that what you're doing can be copied, go ask somebody who sells products on Amazon how easily your thing can be knocked off when someone else sees an opportunity. Anybody who sells on Amazon knows exactly what I mean. That those of you who don't know about this, go ask them. They'll tell you. They'll tell you the whole story. When it comes to a company, this matters just as much, even more, because your tone and voice needs to be codified in such a way that different people can get a point across while the tone and voice do not change too much between communications. In other words, if you're the person running the marketing and the outbound messaging for a company right now, and you leave the company and someone else takes over your job, they should maintain the tone and the style and the cadence and the energy of the company's messaging, even though they're a new person doing it and they're not you. Why? Because the message of the company should have nothing to do with the person who's running the marketing. It has everything to do with the codified language and the codified voice, if you will, that the company has decided this is what we're using. So there needs to be a guide, there needs to be a system that says this is the way we talk. Here are some examples of how we talk. Here's the examples of how we as a company get our point across. So whoever is running it, all you're doing is operating the system. You are not reinventing the wheel. And again, if you're going to scale up a business, this is very important. You must systematize what you're doing so that as more and more people are engaging with it and more people are working within it, nothing is dependent on any individual person. That's really what turning what you do into an entity and an enterprise is all about, is that the company itself becomes its own person. And even if you, the person who started it, is not around doing anything, the company still operates the same way, whether you're there or not. That's what, if you're really trying to scale up a business, really, that's what you're trying to do. Most of the time people talking about scale, they're talking about, of course, making more money. But the way you make more money without having to give more effort is what I'm describing here. You systematize everything so that the system, which can be multiplied, systems can be multiplied, human beings cannot be multiplied. This is what you got to get. So if you right now are hustling, grinding, running on the treadmill, doing your thing, and you're making money, that's great. Problem is you can't multiply how fast you're running on the treadmill. It's only so fast you can run before the treadmill throws you off or you fall and hit your face on that little belt. But if you put a system in place, a system can be multiplied because systems are not humans. This is the reason why an AI chatbot can answer questions from 300 different people who's on its website all at the same time, whereas you cannot do that because you cannot scale yourself to 300 different conversations at once, whereas a computer can. That's why the system matters. What's in a computer is a system. What's in you is just a human. What's in you is a heart and a spirit and a soul and some lungs. All right, you can't multiply that. Everybody understand this? So if we're talking about a company here, any of you listening to this here who works within a company, the company needs to master its tone and messaging so that anyone who is in control of the messaging is simply following the system, not deciding on their own how things are going to sound. Does everyone understand? So this is what codification is about. I talked about this back in episode 1102, codification. It may have been 1101. Let me check. That was 1101, codification of your knowledge. One of my favorite episodes. Codification of your knowledge means taking the things that you know and putting them into a process and a system such that somebody else can know what you know without having to know you. That's what codification means. Again, examples of this, look at Apple, look at Amazon, look at Walmart. The person who started it is not around doing anything anymore, yet the idea that they put in place is still there because they codified what they knew to the point that you don't have to call Jeff Bezos to find the answer to a question. He put it all on paper. So if you're a business entity, you can have different people, different copywriters, different marketers putting your materials out there, but the voice should not change just based on who's sitting at the keyboard. Again, if your marketing person quits and another person takes over next week, the voice shouldn't change because the voice of the company is not reflective of the person doing the job. The voice of the company is reflective of the system. That's what codification is. That means you have to have a clear standard as to what the voice is. And when it's just you by yourself, those of you who are running your businesses on your own, okay? If you're running it on your own, you just need to know your own voice. Now, this sounds a lot easier, yet a lot of people still never master this part. And if you want to codify yourself, then you have to, at the same time, you have to document what your voice is. People need to understand what is it? What is it? What does it mean? Give me some examples. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is before you scale, you must make sure that these things are fixed. Number 2, organization. Organization can mean several things. And in this context, it's about knowing what all your moving pieces are, what pieces could possibly move, in the present and the future that they are not currently moving, and making sure that if and when they do move, you know where and why and how they are moving so you can allow them to move more safely and consistently. That's organization. In other words, it's having all the structures in place for how things work in your business. And if anything moves and something breaks because of that movement, then your organization is not quite where it needs to be at. When your organization is where it needs to be, anything that moves everything else moves in accordance and it all works smoothly. But as soon as something moves and it gets broken, then we got to go fix things all over again. Those of you who know the early story of Facebook, one of the ways that they told each other, one of their early slogans internally was move fast and break things. One of the things they wanted to break was not just what was happening on the outside world, but they wanted to break things internally. All right, let's put together this system that's going to be Facebook, and I want people to just try a bunch of random stuff and let's see what breaks. And we notice something is broken, let's fix that. That's broken, fix this. This is broken, plug that gap. So they would go and break their own thing just to find out where it breaks, and then they would keep patching up the problems and keep fixing the problem to make it better and make it stronger and make it more resilient by basically stress testing their own system, stress testing their own situation. So organization is about making sure all your moving places are in place in such a way that nothing breaks no matter what anybody tries to do. That's the whole point. The more organized you are, the fewer things could possibly break. So make sure that when things do move, everybody knows why and how they're moving and nothing is falling apart. Give you an example. This is part of organization, what I just explained. When I sold my first ever products, the first products I made on my own and sold, I sold other people's stuff in the past, but the first time I made my own stuff was from my $5 training programs for basketball players starting around 2009. They were digital programs that were in PDF format. And when I made my first sales, I would manually send an email to every person who bought from me, because I would get the email that said this person bought ABC for this much money. I would manually email the customer with an attachment in the email with the programs that they had just bought from me. In other words, it was a very manual process. So you bought something from me from 9:15. At 9:45, I might look at my phone, notice I have an email, see that you bought something. Then at 9:47, I'm sending you an email with the 2 programs attached. Now, what if I go to sleep at 10 o'clock and you buy something at 11 o'clock? Well, you're not getting an email from me till 5 o'clock the next morning when I'm sending you the email with the products that you bought. Now, this is somewhat of an inconvenience because around this time, 2009, 2010, people, I didn't know this because, again, these are the first products I sold online, had come to have an expectation that when they bought something online, especially if it was digital, not just anything, but they bought something digital online, there was an expectation that they would get immediate access to the things they bought. And if they bought something that was physical coming in the mail, they were expecting to get an email letting you know, hey, we got your order and here's the tracking number, here's when it's going to get there. This had become an expectation by 2010. This was a basic customer expectation that needed to be fulfilled. I could not tell people, deal with it. I'm not going to fulfill that expectation. I'm going to lose all my business. So I didn't know that there was a such thing at that time that we now know as auto delivery, where as soon as someone purchased something digital, that they could immediately receive what they bought. Like literally by the time they got the confirmation page on the website that they had bought something, they checked their email and the thing that they bought was already in their inbox. That's called auto delivery. And that's a system that is not a human being that fast. It's a system. I didn't know there was such thing as auto delivery in 2009, 2010. And I figured that something like this had to exist, however, at the time. So after about 3 days of waking up in the mornings, anxious about who might be annoyed at me because they bought something while I was sleeping and they were waiting 3 hours to get their programs, I went on Google and I started searching for the software that actually took care of this. It turns out it was called auto delivery software, and there were several different platforms that did it. And I put this all in place. I'm telling you that little anecdote to help you understand this is part of getting the organization of my business in order, because the organization went from manual process, Dre sends an email to whoever bought something, to automatic process, to the system sends an email to whoever bought something. So what did I just do? I just removed myself from one aspect of the business running, which put me closer on the track to this business running without my personal involvement. Do you understand? You can't scale anything if you need a certain human to do a certain thing over and over and over again. There's only so much scaling you can do because there's only so much you can tax that one person, even if you're the one person. There's only so hard any one person can work, no matter how hard of a worker you are. Everybody understand this? So this is a form of getting organizations in order. Delivery, onboarding. Onboarding is basically the process a customer or client goes through when they join your thing. How do you onboard them? Bring them on board. The rhythm of communication, meaning what you send out, when, how, who is responsible for what. This is all part of the organization of your business. And if your business is not organized, you're not ready to scale it, because if you start scaling a business that is not organized, all you're going to do is scale disorder. And that's only going to make your business fail faster. Do you understand? So a lot of people tend to have this false idea that if you scale up a business, it just means you're going to make more money no matter what. That's not true. If you scale up a business that is not properly set up and doesn't have proper organization, you're actually going to fail faster. You will go out of business faster simply because the more business you do, further exacerbates the problem that you never fixed at the baseline level. And the bigger you get, the bigger and more obvious that problem becomes, and the more it's going to hurt you. So don't think that just because you scale up a business, it means that there's going to be more success. It might actually mean faster and more failure and more calamities simply because you scaled up something that should never have been scaled in the first place. Give you another example of this. So at the gym that I go to, leading up to the 4th of July holiday, I knew that the gym was probably going to be on modified hours for the holiday. Now, this particular year, the 4th of July holiday happened to be on a Friday. So the way my workout schedule is, Friday is a gym day for me, so I needed to know what the schedule was. So on Monday, I was at the gym. I asked the guy at the front desk, what are going to be the gym hours on Friday? And the guy said, I could tell, I knew he's relatively new because I've been I go to the gym consistently, and I've only seen this guy over the last month or so. He said, I don't know, but I asked my boss when he comes in. And I go to the gym early in the morning. So the boss, whoever the boss was, they weren't there. I said, all right, cool. I leave. I called the gym later that day, and I asked, what are hours going to be on the 4th of July? The person who answered the phone said it's going to be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is a modified schedule for the gym. I said, okay, but I wasn't sure this person knew what they were talking about. So on Wednesday, I was at the gym, and I asked the guy at the front desk, this is a different guy this time, what are the hours going to be on Friday? The guy said, we're going to be open 24 hours a day. All right, so as you can see, I already got 3 answers already. He said, we're going to be open just our normal hours. All right, that's what he said. So this is my 3rd different answer from 3 different people. On Wednesday afternoon, I called the gym again. I asked the exact same question. Different person answered the phone. I asked the exact same question. This person says, we are going to be completely closed on the holiday, 4th of July. So there's 4 different people, 4 different answers. So I don't know. We got 8 o'clock to 4 p.m. We got open regular hours, and we're going to be completely closed. Then on Thursday afternoon, this is the day before the holiday, I called there about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I asked whoever answered the phone, different person this time, I said, what are hours going to be on the 4th of July, tomorrow? And the person said confidently, we're going to be open our normal hours through the morning, but we're going to close early at 4 p.m. and we'll open again at 5 a.m. on Saturday. That's what the person said. And this person sounded like they knew what they were talking about. And it turns out that that was the actual truth. Long story short, I asked 5 different people the exact same question, 5 people working the same job. They were all at the front desk, and I got 5 different answers. This is a reflection of a company having poor organizational structure. Now, what does that mean? Poor organizational structure. Let's just say, for example, for what I just told you, that if you scale something up like this with disorder, you're only going to make the problems get bigger and faster. Let's say this same gym where they go and franchise themselves out and have 20 different locations. And again, they're going to take the exact thing they got here and have 20 different locations. Now you're going to have 20 different locations of members all pissed off because they're getting 5 different answers asking the same question. Why? Because whatever problems you have in the first one, if you multiply it, you're going to have those exact same problems. All you're going to do is multiply your problems. Everyone understand what I'm saying here? This is a failure in organization. Let's move on to point number 3, because I'm going to talk more about this. Today's topic, once again, is before you scale, make sure you fix these. Number 3, process. Process is directly connected to organization. How an organization actually moves consistently to produce consistent desired results is what we call process. So you organize everything so it's ready to do things. The process is how you actually do it. In every business, the operations manager, this is a job title, is responsible for this stuff. The process is run by the operations manager. Usually, the operations manager is not the same as the person who started the business. The person who started the business is usually the visionary. It's a term that unofficially people get when they start a business. You're the visionary. The operations manager is usually, sometimes they'll be called the operations manager or the ops manager or just head of operations. Sometimes they're an executive assistant. Their job is to basically make sure all the moving pieces move the way they're supposed to move and giving oil to the squeaky wheels. That's the job of the operations manager. Now, some of you may be thinking that I'm kind of going over your head right now because it's just you right now running your business. But don't worry, I got a lot of things for everybody here. If you do not have someone in your business with this title, let's just say it's just you in your business, or you have other people, but none of them have this title, I got news for you. You are the operations manager. If you are running a business by yourself right now, the operations manager is you. Congratulations on your new job. In the example that I just gave, the operations manager, when I was selling my programs for $5, I was the operations manager. I still do some operations in my business to this very day. That person will be responsible for making sure that everybody got their products. So if I had an operations manager back when I was selling my $5 programs, they will be responsible for making sure those emails get sent to the customers who just bought overnight. And they'll be responsible for figuring out how do we get auto delivery set up so I don't have to keep sending these emails. And then how do we sell more products so that now, since everybody can get their products immediately, how about we just turn the scale up on selling these products? Since clearly they're selling, clearly people want them. How do we get more people to know about it? That would be the operations manager's job. Whatever method they decided made the most sense, go ahead and do it. It's your job. You're the operations manager. You ain't got to ask me. Get it done. When it comes to the example of my gym, what I just explained to you about the 5 different people gave me 5 different answers about what time the gym will be open on a holiday. This gym is a big enough organization to where somebody should be, just this facility, somebody should be 100% responsible for their operations. And I'm sure there is someone who's responsible for their operations. This is a nice gym. It's relatively clean, relatively well kept. The people behave themselves, at least when I'm there. I'm an early morning guy at the gym, so I don't know what it's like in the afternoon. But in the early mornings, very calm, respectful, peaceful crowd. Everything's great. So they have somebody running the operations to where the place is not falling apart. And whoever that person is, they're dropping the ball. They dropped the ball on this one right here because they failed to communicate the message not only to the staff, but also to the members of the damn gym. I mean, they could have put a big sign outside the gym that said on holiday, our hours are going to be whatever. Or they could have put it on their social media, or they could have put it on their website, or they could have sent an email out to everybody. They could have put a big sign right at the front desk. They could have did something. Or they could have just told their fucking staff, hey, if somebody calls and asks what's the hours on Friday, here's the answer. Nobody had the answer. This is a operations fail. Somebody failed in operations. And this tells me that this person's dropping the ball probably on other things. Now, this is a small thing. What are your hours going to be on a holiday? It's not like the 4th of July is every week. It's once a year. But if you're dropping the ball on something like that, that's relatively simple, I guarantee you the operations manager of this gym is dropping the ball on other things that I don't know about. And hopefully those things never come to affect me so much to make me have to talk about it again on this show, because I am a paying member of this gym. That could change, but as of now, I am. But I guarantee you they're dropping the ball on other things. They dropped the ball on something as simple as this because they failed to communicate. Process, ladies and gentlemen, is about making everything happen in a smooth, efficient, and effective way. That's what process is. So with regards to the business cost of things, operations is in charge. The time required, operations is in charge. When I signed up for that auto delivery software back in 2009 to make sure that anyone who bought my product immediately got an email with the product that they purchased, I had to pay for access to that software. That software costs money. Now, me sending the emails manually costs nothing, but having the software do it for me costs something. I think the first one I signed up for is probably $30 a month. Now, is it worth $30 a month to save myself the time having to manually send them and make sure my customers are happy? Yes. Why? Because I'll make much more than $30 back once word gets out that I'm immediately getting you your program as soon as you buy them. $30 is nothing. That's a small drop in the bucket investment to make a high return on investment. So you have to factor in your cost, because that is a cost. And you also got to factor in time. Okay, because I'm saving time by giving my customers what they want immediately, which makes them happy, which means they're going to come back and buy more often. So you just have to factor these things in. This is all the job of the operations managers to figure this stuff out. They should be thinking about this all day, at least while they're at work. Inefficient processes can slow a business down to the point of the business failing even when everything else is working. This is what I was talking about in point number 2. A lot of people incorrectly believe that making more sales in a business is automatically going to make the business go up and to the right. This is false. If your processes are not properly in place, making more sales will make your business fail faster. The example that I just gave you. Let's just say I was doing my first day that I was selling my products. I remember I made maybe 2 sales the first night. And people were emailing me like, yo, can I get my programs? And I sent them to them. The first 3 days, it was like that. People were sending me emails 15 minutes after their order saying, hey, I bought something. Can I get the programs? And I had to send them the email. Now, you may say, well, Dre, what if you just were selling thousands of programs every day? That'd be great because you'd be making a whole lot more money. True. However, think about it. Before I set the operations up to automatically deliver, let's say I got 1,000 orders a day and had 1,000 people emailing me like, yo, where are my programs? Now I got to write 1,000 people back with attachments of the things that they bought. Is that a problem that you want? See, all that would have led to is probably several hundred people being really annoyed with me because maybe I can get to the first 50 within the next 10 minutes. But what about the other 800 900 people that I didn't get to yet. It might take me 3 hours to get to the person who emailed me at 9:15 because I had to email all the other people who emailed first, and they're really pissed off. They already asked for a refund because I took too long to deliver them their damn programs. So scaling something up that is not properly organized or properly processing actually hurts you more than it helps you. In businesses where every sale incurs a cost, this is even more obvious. Now, I use the example of me selling my programs where it could be an issue, but it's even more obvious when there's a tangible product and a tangible cost. So for example, in the food business, any of you ever worked in the food business, you know, poor processes and handling food can cause a business to fail even when you have a ton of customers. Let's say you're running a bar, for example. I've known some people who've been bartenders. In a bar, there's a certain amount of liquor you're supposed to pour into every drink. And if you over pour the liquor every time somebody orders a drink, then the bar is going to run out of a certain bottle of something before it's supposed to. You only made 10 sales of this liquor, but this bottle is supposed to provide 15 drinks. You only sold 10 drinks, but the bottle's empty. How'd that happen? Because you're pouring too much. So now we're spending 50% more money on this liquor than we're supposed to. We're not making our return on investment, and now we're going broke because the bartenders are not running the process properly because the operations manager is not watching over them, making sure they do it right. You see how that can cause a problem? Even though you made more sales. So the more sales you make, the faster you're losing money. In any business that handles physical things, food is one. Physical products such as clothing. Businesses where a poor process can lead to slow delivery, shipment issues, inventory issues, all lead to you losing customers. And when you lose customers, you lose money. You lose enough money, you lose your business. So all three of these things need to be in place before you even think about scaling what you're doing. So let's recap today's class, which is before you scale, fix these. This is for anyone running any business at any size. Number one, communication. What is your voice? How are you getting your point across? Do people know that is you when they hear from you? Number two, organization. This is about knowing what all your moving pieces are, what could possibly move in the present and the future, and making sure that when they do move, nothing breaks. You need to have everything set properly so that, point number three, when you run the process, this is number three, is directly connected to organization. This is how all the pieces actually move. So organization is setting them up to move. Process is how they actually move. If you don't have somebody with the operations title, you are the operations person. You better make sure everything's operating the way it's supposed to operate such that when you get new business and new opportunities, things move the way that you want them to move. You want to learn. I know many of you want to learn and start working on putting these things in place in your own business. You want to make sure you have the right process. You want to get your communication down to a science and codify it. And you want your systems running and firing on all cylinders such that the system is doing more work than you are. Wouldn't that be beautiful? I want to let you know that it's possible. It doesn't matter what kind of business you run. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Have me as your coach. Let's get to work. Just schedule a call right there on the first button you see. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all